Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh. Love is given in many, many different ways. Most people give what it is they can give. Most animals give what they can give. For instance, a scorpion gives a scorpion's sting, and that can kill you. A king cobra will give you a cobra's sting, and that can kill you. Man has all of the animals within him, all of the thousands of animals, poisonous and non-poisonous. So when a man or a woman gives you love, it can also be poisonous, just like the cobra and the scorpion. And it can cause you great harm and torpor. But there is one love that is without poison. There is one love that is different than all the other loves. And that's the love of the Sheik. The love of the Sheik is healing. The love of the Sheik is soothing. The love of the Sheik is curing. The love of the Sheik takes away torpor and brings you into a state of purity. The love of the Sheik can alter you. It can take you from sorrow and distress to joy and jubilation. It can take you from difficulty to ease. It can do all of these things for you if you allow it to do that to you. And the Sheikh's love is also unlike any other love. It has no discrimination. It has no favorites. It has equality within it, equal towards each and every being without differences. It doesn't segregate or separate. It gives love, and it gives love freely and openly and equally to all. Each of us has a mind, and the mind is elemental, and the mind deals with the world. And the mind is also known as the great monkey. The mind imitates what it sees. It does what it sees and can't improvise anything new. It repeats the world. It sees the world and repeats the world. It sees the world and then does what it sees in the world. There was a man who was a merchant, and he was selling hats, and he had a whole stack of hats with him that he was going to sell in the next village that he went to. But he fell asleep, and monkeys came and took all his hats. He was only left with the hat on his head, and he had to figure out a way to get the hats back. So he looked up at the monkeys, and he took off his hat and threw it on the ground. And then all the monkeys took off their hats and threw it on the ground. And he ran around and collected his hats. That is how the mind works. It repeats what it sees. The mind is limited. The mind cannot understand Allah. The mind cannot see Allah. The mind cannot wrap itself around Allah, and the mind cannot take you to Allah. So somehow you have to mollify the mind. You have to soothe the mind. You have to occupy the mind. And the way that you occupy the mind is to bring a mirror in front of the mind so that the monkey in the mind will be occupied with the mirror. And as it is occupied with the mirror, in fact, occupied with itself, you can escape and go to places where the mind cannot go. We have many scriptures in the world, and we have many questions about the scriptures. And we wonder sometimes, where do the scriptures go? Where do the scriptures end? And where does Sufism begin? And what's the difference between the two? The scriptures take you to the limits of the mind. They take you to what the mind can see. They explain the world for you, and they teach you how to act within the world. So the limits of the world are what are shown to you in the scriptures. The understanding of the world is what is shown to you in the scriptures. But there is a place and a state beyond the scriptures. There is a state when the questions of permissible and not permissible are no longer within your purview because you've passed them. There's no question of the fact that you do what's right and you stay away from what's wrong. It has become innate in your being because of your practice. It has become innate in your being that you stay away from torpor and you stay away from desire. It is said that if you can give up the desire for gold, the desire for women, the desire for fame, the desire for power, then without thought, automatically within you, wisdom will rise, because the things that suppress wisdom have been suppressed by you. So each of us must understand what it is within us that suppresses wisdom, what it is within us that takes us away from following the path of truth, from following the straight path, from following the transcendent path. And what takes us away from wisdom, what takes us away from this transcendent path, is the love that we have for illusion, the love that we have for this world, the love that we have for what we think we can gain prominence from in illusion. So if we love fame, if we love fortune, if we love women, if we love wealth, if we love all of these things, then we have clouded our vision. We have put a barrier between ourselves and reality, because these things are not real. These things are temporary in their manifestation and temporary in their nature and temporary in their existence. Everyone comes into the world and everyone treats the world as if it were a never-ending experience, a never-ending phenomenon, a never-ending place for us to reside. But the world isn't stable. the world isn't meant as a permanent existence. And we live in an illusion of permanence. We live in an illusion of stability. We live in a way that our mind cannot imagine our demise. We live as if there were no end to this life. And the entire world lives as if there were no end to this life. So when we see a newspaper, when we see a magazine, they write stories about what's going on now, as if the story of what's going on now has immense importance. Newspapers have big headlines on the front as to the important event of the day. But tomorrow, that same important event is used to wrap fish and smells from fish. Until we understand the truth of this world and the nature of this world, we live in a torpor of believing in illusion. We live in a torpor of believing in the temporary as if it were permanent. The mind is not capable of going beyond the temporary. So to the mind, the temporary is permanent because it cannot conceive further than the temporary. It cannot conceive what is outside of illusion. It cannot conceive beyond what the physical eyes can see. It cannot conceive beyond what the ears can hear or the mouth can taste. It cannot conceive beyond the sensual perceptions of the body that we have. And because it's limited in this way, if we pay obeisance to the mind, if we believe in the mind, if we give the mind credence, if we do all of these things, then we are limited to a world that appears real, but isn't real. It looks real, but it isn't real. It seems real, but it's not real. And until we can escape from the influence of the mind, we will continue to believe that it's real, and then our actions will reflect our belief system. And if our belief system believes that the world is real, we will do the things to promote our existence within this world. We will do the things to make ourselves larger within this world. We will do the things to make ourselves grow within this world. But there is another reality beyond the reality of illusion. In illusion, religion is very important. And for many people, religious fanaticism becomes very important. They believe the more fervor, the more fanatical they are within their religion, the closer they are to Allah. But in truth, religious fanaticism destroys God's love for you and God's interaction with you, because Allah did not create just one way. Allah did not create just one people. And if we limit ourselves to believing that one set of people are more important than other groups of people, if we limit ourselves to believing that one set of prayers are more important than every other set of prayers. We have further brought ourselves into illusion. We have further brought ourselves into believing in what is not real in the name of God. And this is a most bizarre thing, that in the name of God, we create things that aren't real and hold them up as sacred and hold them up as important and hold them up as that which brings us closer to God. Some say, grow your hair and never cut it, and that will bring you closer to God. Some say, shave your head and never let it grow, and that will bring you closer to God. But in truth, that which will bring you closer to God is to shave your belief system in illusion, to shave all of the lies that you've swallowed as to what's real and which you hold on to as sacred. We have to enter into that free, open space. The scriptures have a limit to them. And the limit of the scriptures is this world and the understandings of this world. And the scriptures teach you how to act within this world. They teach you halal and haram, permissible and not permissible. They teach you the difference between good and evil. However, to go beyond that, we need to bring ourselves in front of a mirror, not to show us the monkey of ourselves, but to show us the truth of ourselves. This mirror is a very rare mirror. This mirror is a Kamil Sheikh, an Insan Kamil, a Jnanam Guru, a guru of true wisdom. And he is sent here from the light for us to be able to comprehend what it is to be with the light. His teaching is beyond this world. His teaching is of another level, a level to take you, to prepare you for the light world, a level to take you to where, as opposed to living in this world and doing what's correct in this world, you die to this world. You die to this world before your physical death. You relieve yourselves from the torpor of this world, from the desire of this world, from the acts of this world, from the various pulls and pushes that this world does to you, from the magnetic illusions of this world, from the glitters and the torpors of this world. If you can bring yourself before that mirror, you can then see what life is like outside of attachment to this world and what life is like in reality, what life is like in hakikat, what life is like with Allah as opposed to with this world. And what life is like with Allah is different than what life is like within the world. We give praise to different things. We respect different things. We love in a different way. We love in the way the Sheikh loves. We love in the way that gives comfort to all lives, gives contentment to all lives, gives peace to all lives. The scriptures have to be opened up. They're like a seed with a shell. And inside the shell, there is so much more than is seen when just the seed is looked at. And the Ketub comes to uncover that shell, to show us where we go after we have conquered our life in this world. First, we must conquer this worldly life. We must detach ourselves from this worldly life. We cannot maintain our attachment to fame, wealth, sex, and all of the other torpors of the world, and simultaneously maintain or create a connection with Allah. It's a different kind of being. It's a different kind of love. Once there was a young lady who had been a ballerina, and she had a terrible accident where she hurt her foot and she could no longer dance. And she decided to go see a master in order to find out about reality. And she went to his place of worship, the place where he resided, and she had an appointment set up with him. And she came in to see him, and she said to him, "Can we talk about what kind of practice I should do in order to advance myself?" And he said, "Never mind that. Let's talk about your foot." And she began to cry and describe what happened to her foot. And as she cried, the master cried with her. And this went on for about a half an hour until the end of the session, and she left. The next day, she came in and she said to the master, "Can we talk about my practice?" And he said, "Never mind that. Let's talk about your foot." And she began to cry again and talk about her foot. And the whole time that she was talking about her foot and crying, he was crying along with her. And this went on every day for about a week. Then after the week, she came in and she said to him, "Let's talk about my foot." But there were no tears and the sorrow was gone. And he said, "Never mind that. Let's talk about your practice." This is what the Sheikh can do for you. The Sheikh can remove your sorrow. The Sheikh can remove your pain. The Sheikh feels your pain with you and takes it with you. And when your pain is gone, and when your sorrow is gone, and when your attachment to your pain and your attachment to your sorrow is gone, then you can begin to learn the truth. Then you can begin to enter into the path of reality. Then you can begin to transcend beyond this illusory world. But until that happens, your attachment is so powerful that you may not even know how powerful it is. And that's why you need a sheikh to intervene for you and to show you the truth of who you are and who you can become. She was not her foot. She was not her dancing. She was not her profession. She was more than that. But she couldn't be more than that until such time as she gave up our attachment to each and every one of those things. An old soldier came to a sword master and said to him, "I've come to learn from you. I know that I'm old. I've been through many wars. I'm ignorant as to reality, and I would like to understand truth." And he said, "Well, you've been in so many," the master said to him, "you've been in so many wars. You must have learned something. Tell me what you've learned." And he said, "Well, I've learned that each life is sacred, and to take life is not something we should be doing. And I've learned to humble myself in front of others." And the master turned to him and said, "I am happy to become your student." The old soldier had learned the lessons of life through what he had gone through. The old soldier had learned the truth, and the master was powerful enough within himself and humble enough within himself to give obeisance to this old man so that the old man could rise above his thought of himself and understand reality. This is what a master does. A master can love equally and without any favoritism towards everybody. And he can be within a room of 1,000 people and create love that is equal for each one of them. Unfortunately, not all students can accept that love equally, and many feel they need to somehow be brought forth and given honors, and if they don't get that, there is resentment in them, but that has nothing to do with the teacher. The teacher gives equally. It's up to the students to learn how to love equally. It's also up to students to suppress their arrogance and to suppress their belief in how much they know. A student came to his master and said, "Master, I have conquered life and death." And the master said, "Really?" And he said, "Yes, I've gotten to that point. I've conquered life and death." Immediately, the master jumped on the student, grabbed him by the throat, and began to choke him. And they wrestled around the room, choking the student. Finally, the student rears back and punches the master in the mouth to get away from him. And the master looks at him and says, "Oh, I thought you had conquered life and death." Later on that same day, the student with the marks still around his neck passed one of the senior students in the place, and the senior student saw the marks around his neck, and he said, "Oh, I see you've conquered life and death." So he wasn't the first one who went through that experience. We need to understand our limitations. We need to understand what we have and what we haven't conquered. We need to understand our dependence on the Sheikh. And in our dependence on the Sheikh lies our dependence on Allah. It is from Allah that the Sheikh came, and it is the intention of the Sheikh to bring us to Allah. So in surrendering to the Sheikh, we surrender to what he has surrendered to, and he has surrendered to Allah. So we have to first make an effort to find a sheikh. If this effort isn't made, then it becomes difficult to form an intention that will bring us into the purview of a sheikh. Once that intention is set and that intention becomes powerful, the universe works in a way that a teacher will be provided for you. Even in the West, where teachers are not so common and where the understanding of teachers is not so common. By whatever circumstances Allah had in his decision-making process, he sent a Ketub to Philadelphia so that those of us living in this area and those of us living in America could have the opportunity to meet such a being that came from light into the world, a being that wasn't subject to the elemental pressures of creation. The elements have within them certain arrogance and a certain sense of self-importance and a certain hostility towards the other elements, which comes from their sense of self-importance. The earth considers itself more important than water. Water considers itself more important than fire. Fire considers itself more important than air. Air considers itself more important than ether. Ether considers itself more important than earth, and so on. Each of the elements has a hostility towards the other elements. And watch the world. You can see this hostility in action. You can see tornadoes. You can see typhoons. You can see earthquakes. You can see floods. You can see fires. All of these things are destructive. But the sheikh doesn't come from the elements. He comes from the light. This is not a reincarnation. This is a grace of Allah where he sends consciousness from the light into this world to bring man to reality, where he brings the perspective of light into this world to help man change his perspective, where he brings a perspective that is uncommon in this world because it doesn't deal with trying to be successful in this world. It doesn't deal with trying to conquer this world. It doesn't deal with trying to swallow this world. It doesn't deal with the various attachments of this world. It deals with a perspective that comes from Allah, a perspective of equality among all men, a perspective of equality among all races, among all colors, among all languages, among all beings, a perspective of unity where love is shared equally among each and every one, where the qualities that are satanic don't exist, where there is no jealousy and there is no hastiness and there is no anger and there is no hate, where none of these things exist. And if you can place yourself in front of that, and you can relieve yourself of all of your opinions and all of the things you hold on to, and allow his resonance to enter into you and become part of you, then you can become like him. You can become unto him. You can change your nature into his nature. You can transcend the world in the way that he has transcended the world, because his direction to us was constantly become like me. So what is our meditation? Our meditation is to relieve ourselves of all the things that attach us to the world, to relieve ourselves of all of the desires that attach us to the world, relieve ourselves of all of the animal love that exists in the world, and change it to the transcendent love of Allah, which is equal for all, unconditional for all, and given to all freely without anything expected in return. The Sheikh, the true Sheikh, never asks anything of you other than your surrender. The Sheikh never looks for anything from you that has to do with the world. The Sheikh is not of the world. The Sheikh has died to the world, and he says to each of us, if we are to come to know our true selves, we have to die to the world. And all of the honors that we have in the world, and all of the things that give us excitement in the world, have to begin to disappear from us. And what has to begin to appear is our love for Allah, our love for truth, our love for compassion, our love for mercy, our love for his qualities, our love for his gracious ways and his gracious actions. And when that occurs for us, then we enter into truth, and then we conquer the world by not being in control of it, but by not letting it be in control of us. And that's how the true conquering of the world occurs. So with the grace of the Sheikh and the grace of Allah, may each of us come to know the truth of that ray within ourselves, which is who we truly are. And may we be brought into that transcendent presence of the hakikat, of the relationship with Allah. And may it come to pass that we die to this world while still alive in this world, and enter into the realm of truth along with our Sheikh. Ameen, Ameen. Ya Rabbil Alameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh.